Okay, so for the next 40 minutes, I will explain basically what RedELK is and how red teams can use it to, let's say, just supercharge the team and their operations and their insight. So yeah, so that's for the next 40 minutes. I will be around afterwards to answer a few more questions within the dedicated room, as it is with all the other speakers. So let's start. For the people who do not know me, my name is Marc Smeets. I'm partly red team operator, tool builder. I give a few trainings here and there, and I have been in offensive security since 2006. Before that, I had a background in system and network engineering, and since 2006, I've been involved as a security consultant / pen tester, and nowadays red teaming. That's all offensive, and about a year ago, I did a shorter sprint of a few months as a threat hunter, so on a defensive side at a large financial company, and I can recommend everybody on the offensive side to tip their toes in the defensive world. Even if it's just for a short time, it will make you better, and it will make the blue teams better as well, because as an offensive, as a red teamer, you can bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience to the blue team. It was eye-opening, and I enjoyed it a lot. Also, threat hunting in Excel is really cool. And together with RedELK and where the project is going, we are bringing the concept of threat hunting to the red team, so to the offensive side. But that's a topic for a different discussion. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Outflank. We are a smaller red teaming firm here in the Netherlands, founded in 2016. We started with 4 people, and nowadays we are with 7. So very focused much on red teaming and very specialized penetration tests. For those not familiar with the TIBER framework, TIBER stands for Threat Intel Based Ethical Red Teaming. So it's a red teaming framework created also in 2016 by the Dutch National Bank, and now it's been adopted by the European Central Bank. And you got to see it as a framework for which proper red team engagements can be performed. So it defines how threat intelligence should be done. It defines what attack scenarios, to what level, to how communication should be done. And it's gaining traction throughout the world. Many more countries are adopting it, and we are a very big advocate because it helps both the clients, both the blue teams and the red teams, to talk about the same stuff. So we are big advocates. If you've got questions about TIBER as well, I'm available either via Twitter or in the speaker room afterwards. So there's that. All I can say for the rest is check out our blog and check out our GitHub. We love sharing knowledge about the stuff that we do. So, when I'm talking about red teaming, you got to understand that we see red teaming not as a match where red tries to smash blue down, just the wrecking ball approach. We do not like that. If there's one thing that I would like you to remember from this talk, is that the sole purpose of a red team is to increase the power of the blue team, to make the blue team better. There is no other reason. It can be fun in between as a red teamer, and of course we have fun, but the end goal is always to improve the security of the blue teams, of your opponent. And you got to see it as sort of a boxing match. And where the true skill of the red team comes into play is where it allows itself to lower its skill or upper its skill depending on the level of skills of the blue team. So that might actually mean that if you have penetrated and hacked it throughout the company and there has not been a sufficient detection happened or acted upon, you got to start on purpose stupid mistakes, drop mimikatz or domain controller, or try to generate alarms that the blue team is just forcefully required to act upon, because there's where the true boxing match starts. And well, famous boxer once said, everybody's got a plan until they've been hit on the face, on the chin. It's the same thing happens during the red team engagement. The true learning happens when there's been detection and when the actual fight starts. So real punches, real movement, real combos, it actually hurts when you're hit. It happens when our infrastructure just gets partly burned down, but it's part of the game. So you got to emulate it as much as possible. So that's where we see red teaming. Now, we use tech. we use an infrastructure, and on a higher level, from the left side, you can see the victim network. There's an implant running on a specific system that we've compromised. It's talking outside back to our infrastructure via HTTP or DNS, and internally it can use maybe SMB traffic to connect to other systems. But the important thing to remember here is that there's no connection, there should be no connection set up directly to the command and control. Everything flows via or through a redirector. It's a proxy layer in between. Could be an Apache, could be HA proxy, could be some fancy cloud service, or could be something as infrastructure as code, Kubernetes, or whatever. But there should be a redirector in between, because it gives you an option, a possibility to shift IP addresses. And if your connection is being killed off at the corporate proxy, it allows you to stream back via a different connection while still your team server or your C2 server is still up and running. A lot of stuff going on. High level overview. Let's dive into the amount of components that we have during a, let's say, a regular red teaming operation. And this is just one operation. So there's a multitude of C2 servers. In many cases, many Tyra frameworks, Tyra engagements, there's at least 5, which means at least another 5 redirectors or reverse proxies. You can use domain fronting. It's not killed. It's possible via many different ways still. So you've got a few of that in the operation. You're going to create some social media profiles. You've got to create a few websites. There's tracking pixels everywhere, in every email, and every marker execution, in every stage of the execution. And well, basically, sometimes you will be doing, as a red teamer, some remote debugging at the client, at the implant where you've been running. So tracking pixels can help a lot. They grow very quickly in the amount. For delivery, there's web servers, email, file sharing, messaging platforms, whatever you name it, different types of delivery, and that's all. These are all facing to the actual target, but there's also some way of generic backend components, and I'm talking about log aggregations or specific test environments, payload delivery systems, communication channels. There's a lot of systems happening in your available in your operation, and it becomes a challenge to keep the oversight of this. A typical operation would have at least 30 different components. So that brings us to, I would say, that 2 main challenges that red teamers nowadays face. One is keeping oversight of the operation, including all the infrastructure components. And the second one is having insight on knowing what is happening on your infrastructure. There is so much traffic flowing back and forth that you might not even know what's happening in there. And because the blue teams are improving in skills, it really pays if you have tools to have some insight on what's happening on the infrastructure. But first, let's look at the oversight. You got to see it as roughly said, anything that we can help to, for the red team operator to have a better workflow, that's awesome. I just told you that there are so many different systems. You don't want to be looking through your infrastructure notes.txt of which component, which system name belongs to which specific scenario, to what specific long haul, short haul, whatever. You want to have a simple overview of having all the oversight. You want to have instant an idea of where everything is located and what system is just being touched. So, but it could also be simple things of let's just simply click and have a list of all the indicators of compromise. You want to help the red team operator with an easier workflow. That is everything with the oversight. I just double clicked. You got to compare. You can compare it to cowboys in some way because you are hurt the infrastructure. And if you can have tools to have that better together, then that is awesome. Talk about the inside. I want to show you a picture of Mr. Edmond Locard. He is somewhat of the French Sherlock Holmes, early 20th century, and he was the first one to put basically science into forensic science. He was the first one to use microscopes. He was the first one to look at a crime scene and start with investigation in a proper way. The reason why I'm bringing this up is he is most known for his principle, which is Every contact leaves a trace. Now, this goes both ways. We know, we as red teamers, if we have something running at a different system, it will leave a trace in logs, in files, and whatever. But it also happens to be the same way around. If the blue team starts investigating something, they will leave traces. Every contact leaves a trace. And that's where the insight actually is really insightful, is helpful, because if we know where to look for, we can actually start having a better insight. But as I said in the introduction, we're missing tools for oversight and insight, and that's why we started to create RedELK. And I apologize for the graphics. It's the best that I come up with. I have many skills, but the graphic creation is not my main skill. And if there's somebody out there who would like to help with more fancy graphics, I would very much appreciate that. Reach out to me. In the meantime, hey, it's an ELK stack, and it has got a red sunglasses. Why not? We blogged about it. We put out the code already some time ago, and I can remind you, if you like this topic, go through the code, go through the blogs. It will have more details for you. So let's look back at the infrastructure, but now how RedELK would actually fit in. Again, we've got on the left side, we've got the target network where the implant is running. It connects back via the redirectors or first line infrastructure, on how you want to say it. And some connections go back to the C2 servers. Nothing new here. Where does RedELK fit in? Here. RedELK is a component, Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana. So it's an Elastic Stack, NoSQL, you know the drill, and it has connectors to basically all the infrastructure of the attacker. So it has data feeds of the redirectors and of the C2 servers. It feeds that into the main Elasticsearch database. There's also some data copying going on the backside. So for example, the screenshots and the downloaded files that typically remain on one of your multiple C2 servers, where you need to log in via your own, let's say, CobblStrike interface to the different team servers to look for the downloaded files. Now we synchronize it all back to the RedELK server. And once at the RedELK server, the data from the traffic and from the operations, we index it, we put on dashboards. You can easily search through it, and there is some enrichment going on. Of course, it's GUI is everything, and you can use the searching and alerting functionality of the actual Kibana interface that comes with the stack. We use that with RedELK as well. So that's one side. The other side is, of course, when the SOC, the target SOC, is actually doing something. So let's say they have something went up into their systems and they want to investigate something. All of a sudden, they start to investigate your infrastructure. That could be by third parties, or it could be by direct connections to your actually infrastructure. And because it's flowing back to the RedELK stack, you are able to see that traffic. So that's one way. The other way is, of course, via, let's say, Spamhaus or Aristotle, IBM X-Force, or any other type of domain classifiers that are out there. And the funny thing is that as soon as an analyst submits something to those online providers, connections are made back to the redirectors, because we know which IP range IBM X-Force operates from, we can get alarms. So that's one simple example. And of course, we can also query those online security providers. Spamhaus, for example, you can ask them, well, is this URL known to be bad? And if it's only your own URL that using your operation, and then suddenly it changes the status from legit website to rogue website, well, you're going to alarm over there. And the same goes for hashes of pieces of malware. You get the drill. So you heard me say data enrichment. Let's go through those. On one side, we put on GeoIP information for all the traffic that is hit and stored into the ELK database. We can enrich it with GeoIP information, reverse DNS. We know who the IP block owner is. We can tag it if it's a Tor address, yes or no. And gray noise. And for the people who do not know gray noise, you got to see it as noise cancellation for the internet. And gray noise is awesome. For the blue team perspective, you can ask gray noise, well, is this IP address that is scanning my infrastructure, is that just a normal scanner? Or is it a targeted thing? So gray noise has eyes and ears throughout the internet, and it knows of all the common scanners like the Google bots, but also the showdowns and all the different online scanners that are out there, including some botnets. And it classifies those based on the source IP address, and it has information about that. Well, from our red perspective, we can query for every IP address that touches our infrastructure. We can ask gray noise, have you got some information about this IP address? And if there is information, I don't care. It's okay. It's just a normal scanner. If gray noise does not have information about the IP address that is looking at their infrastructure, that's weird. Chances are it's a blue team that's actually investigating us. So gray noise, that's a big one. There's hybrid analysis, virus total, and all the other ones that we can use data from, that we use for enrichment of the data. And then there's on the C2 levels, we started out with Cobalt Strike and our own custom implant that we have, or implants, I must say. Those are supported by RedELK, and we are working currently on, there's been a commit made for the Parse C2 framework, which is, I would say, halfway done. And other on the roadmap are Covenant, Faction, Apfel, Skype. There's a few that are working on having support for RedELK, because you got to understand that RedELK needs to know in some way how the logging rules are being created, and therefore understand the data in there. It's a bit of a work, but it's doable. So about seeing everything, and I've got a few videos in here, and let's see how this actually works. Just a demonstration of how RedELK is presented to the red teamer. So it's a normal Kibana interface. You log in via credentials, and from there on, it's basically a default standard Kibana interface. Of course, with the awesome RedELK logo in there. And you can change the views, change the time series or the time period. But there's one thing that I want to show you here is that I have made some pre-made views, one being red team operations, talking about downloads and screenshots, redirector traffic. Those are pre-made views that allow you to, apparently it allows you to have a quicker overview and quickly dive into the proper index with the proper fields already listed inside of the columns that you see. You can change them to your own liking, but these are just the default sets. Now let's dive into one example of the redirector traffic. So this is traffic touching our redirectors. You can see that we've got different attack scenarios. In this case, long haul and short haul, as you would have within a red teaming operation. You can filter on only, let's say, short haul. It's got timestamps. It's got information on what system this traffic log came from. It knows the owner of the IP block. The full message is in there as it is being logged by, in this case, it's Apache. There's a modified logging rule in there because by default the logs of the redirectors are not that sufficient. So you need to change something there to have all the information. And once you have that, it's awesome, I gotta say. We do a few tricks with getting all the header information, even if it's coming through a CDN. So if we're doing domain fronting, RedELK is X forwarded for header aware, so it changes the proper IP address of not the actual client that made the traffic instead of the CDN end node. And this is all searchable. You can scroll through it manually, or you can just simply search and use your Kibana searching skills. Now let's go to the your C2 operations. Majority of C2 frameworks, they log per line, and they have this interface where it's pretty hard to scroll. And if you have a beacon or implant running for many commands, the scrolling becomes not very helpful. So what we did is we interpreted all those loggings and we do some enrichment of the actual IP address and the system, etc. So per line, you know which system it belongs to. And there is a clickable hyperlink of the full, in this case, Cobalt Strike beacon log. in your browser, you can simply just hit Control F and start searching, and it allows the operator to have a better broadened overview instead of the small CobbleStrike interface client or your Parse C2. You can use Control F very quickly in here, and it will give you a better oversight. It will help the operator with its workflow. Screenshots, you know the drill. I've put in the screenshots in there. You can see that there is a hyperlink and you will get the full screenshots. It will help you if you remember well, somewhere a few months ago where I had this specific user that we hacked, and there was a screenshot made of his desktop, and you can just quickly scroll through here instead of logging into all your different team servers and look at the screenshots over there. One central overview. And there's one more thing that I want to show you here is that the IOCs. So we're clicking on the IOC view right here. You will see the IOC hash of files uploaded or the service name that's being created. Typical stuff that CobbleStrike outputs. But you want to share this with the white team and eventually the blue team. Now there's a simple function built into Kibana, which called is CSV file sharing, and you just click on it, and from here on it exports this normal view that you see here within the specific time frame. So basically everything you see on this screen is being exported to a CSV file. One click or 3-click download and shareable with the blue team. It helps with the workflow of the red teamer. The same goes for keystrokes. We got a few more things over there, but I will not. You've got the idea. So let's talk about the indicators. Let's start with online services. How am I time-wise? Jennifer or Emil or Moses? Got 15 minutes left?
I believe this goes until, well, we started like, it was 40-minute talk and we started about 5 minutes left. So yeah, I think you have about 15 minutes left.
Okay, let's dive into the online services.
Maybe, you know, we don't have to technically break until.
Yeah, I like to keep to the schedule. So
yeah, 20 minutes should be fine.
Okay, awesome. So dear red teamers, this is an interface of Symantec EDR solution, which is just a modern EDR solution. It's not the best out there, but I've put in this picture right here to give you just a simple image of something happened. In this case, Symantec said it was fine. It was not fine, but hey, EDRs make issues, or sometimes they report incorrectly. That is not a problem. I want to show you the two buttons below: submit to SANDBOX and submit to VirusTotal. I want to show you how easy it is being made for the blue teamers to simply just upload something to SANDBOX or VirusTotal. VirusTotal, we all know VirusTotal, and the SANDBOX in this case is Symantec's own custom sandbox environment. And as soon as they click the button, within a few minutes they have a result. The file is being run in a sandbox, and there is a result as being shown back. Now, it's not just Symantec. Here's a screenshot of Windows Defender ATP. In this case, there was no malware detection. And again, here is, there are a few buttons here going on. Let me scroll to my notes just a quick more. Yeah, so there is the malware protection central portal, which is like some sort of a full analysis done by the sandbox environment of Microsoft. What I tell you is it's being made very easy for them to click on this button. And what happens if they click on a button? You see here an overview of a little race that we did with a few people within our training, as in who can get the most sandbox implant connections back. And this run over a period of 24 hours, and you can see the trainee of number 15 was the clear winner. Our record holds at near 1,200 sandbox connections during the trainings that we do. And on the right-hand side, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I want to highlight here the fact that all those sandboxes are being created by the same type of software, and they all have system names and usernames that are just obviously sandbox connections. Never in our red teaming connections we have encountered a sandbox that actually resembled the naming convention of the actual client. So it's very easy to spot the sandbox connection. There are many factors. Also, of course, the source IP address can be an indicator if you know where the IP addresses, the IP connections should be coming from. But just the mere fact that there's admin PC and there is Lisa PC and all the different ones, it's clear indicators of sandbox connections. And you cannot blame the blue team because it's being made so easy for them to click on a button, right? But it kind of depends if the blue team knows what their artifacts are. The same goes for us red teamers. We need to know what our tools are leaving as artifacts, and the same goes for the blue teams. Every contact leaves a trace. Now let's talk about traffic coming to an infrastructure. If you see curl or Python requests or Python URL lib or whatever touching your infrastructure on the very specific URLs that are part of your implant, well, it's a clear giveaway that there's something going on. And more than once, more than 10 times, we have seen blue teamers thinking, well, if I connect via a Tor uplink and I just use curl to investigate the infrastructure, then they will not know that I'm investigating their infrastructure. Well, it's a clear giveaway in this case. Of course, there is on a normal internet traffic will not reach the specific URLs of your implant, especially not using Python. You will always have the user agent that you've configured in your C2 framework. So it's a very obvious immediate alarm when Python is accessing your, trying to access your C2. And this one is very funny. It's just not Telegram. There are many other messaging platforms that will try to make a preview. As soon as you start typing a URL, it will want to present to the users of the messaging apps, a preview of what the website looks like. iMessage does it, Skype does it, all the different ones. And there's also nearly always an option to turn it off. But more than once we've seen during operations that blue teamers within their Slack channel or whatever, they are sharing links of our infrastructure. And the funny thing is with Telegram is that as you type, for every new character, it does a HTTP request to the actual infrastructure. So you will, it's a clear giveaway that somebody is investigating your infrastructure. Cool stuff. And it's very funny if you present this back at the end of the meeting or back at the end of the engagement when you have a meeting with blue. It's very cool that you can give the information back and you will see the eyes popping up as in, oh crap. Yeah. That's all on the outside. But once the implant is running on the internal side, if we have broken the coconut, if I may put it like that, there's also a lot of intelligence or indicators that we can see on the inside. So let's say you've hacked a company and you do a query of the last password change date of the KRBTGT account. And as soon as you come in the network, you will see a date, let's say 2010, or anyway, a long time ago. It's an indicator that they have not got the practice up and running of periodically changing the KRBTGT password. But if after some time later in the operation, you do the check again, and all of a sudden it's changed, you can recognize that the KRBTGT has been changed the password just 2 days ago. Well, that's pretty odd that if they have not changed it in 10 years and all of a sudden they do it, well, my bet is on the fact that they have investigated something and have started performing actions. Now, this is not just the KRBTGT, but the password change date is very interesting for many different accounts, KRBTGT, but also specific administrative accounts or service accounts or different accounts of high value. And in this case, we created our own tool. This is BlueCheck. This is not open sourced. Yet we are thinking of doing this, maybe yes or maybe no, but all it does is it's via OPSEC, the Active Directory service integration, which basically is just sort of a common layer of communication to the Active Directory, which is very hard to be detected by blue teams or by defensive tools. It is possible, but it's hard. But it's somewhat regarded as a safe check. And we can use this to check the last password change date. And all of a sudden, if it changes between one check and a second check, It's not a clear indicator, but most of the times it actually is a clear indicator. Of course, you got the information of the password change policy as well, and if you match that together, well, boom, you might have an indicator that there's something going on. Now, short overview of a few things of alarms that some are built into RedELK already and some we are working on. So AV hashes of our own malware is being included. A few of the online services are being queried for the hashes of our own IOCs, and you get an alarm if something is matched over there. The infrastructure blacklist we are partly working on there, but it's we're partly working on that, but it's a clear indicator. So there are C2 scanners connecting to your infrastructure, AV sandboxes, analyst traffic, security vendors. We know which IP ranges Blue Code operates from, stuff like that. There's also Blue Code has a very specific way of accessing your infrastructure. It's immediately, with just a few packets, you know that it is Blue Code, yes or no. So there's instant messaging things that's already built into RedELK. And then we're talking about the target internal, KRBTGT, but also a change of security tooling. So all of a sudden, if the AV is being upgraded by the EDR, it's possible that it was part of the normal operations, but it's also some sort of indicator if it's happening during the operations. Now, I'm still struggling with the term of this, indicator of analysis, indicator of investigation, indicator of detection. I would like to hear your thoughts later on this presentation in the speaker room, in the hallway. If you got ideas about that, please let me know. Now, how can we start supercharging? The few main concepts that you got to understand before you start. And with the planning, it is that RedELK or the RedELK component, the RedELK server is intended per operation. You do not want to mix clients. You build up your new infrastructure for the new engagement, include another RedELK server, and nuke the whole thing after the operation is done. The RedELK server stores high confidential data. It has all the logs of the operators. It has all the screenshots. It has all the downloaded files during the operation, all the traffic. It's high confidential data. RedELK has three main components. The RedELK server itself. There's an installer running over there. There's an installer running on the C2 server and one on the redirector. And of course, you need to run those on every C2 server and every redirector. Now, I already mentioned before that for the logging by the redirector, for example, Apache and HA proxy that are supported right now, it requires more extensive logging. The default logging of those redirectors, of those reverse proxies, is not sufficient. It has some information, but you want to modify that. And the wiki and the documentation of RedELK explains you how to change that to get header information, to get all the proper, the naming of the front end where the traffic came in and the back end where it's being sent to. Those are very important things. And there's many more little details that you need to read in the docs. There's a wiki. I spent some time creating a wiki, and there's the many blog posts already written. I advise you to go through those. Of course, I'm always happy to answer any questions, but there's a lot of information already there in the docs. Now, installation. Basically, there are releases which are stable, and there's a master branch where we're continuing on the version 1, and there's a main dev where we're working on the version 2. You got to understand that the initial setup is pretty important. There you define with the certificates on how traffic is going to flow, because we do not like unencrypted traffic about our operation flowing from redirectors or team servers back to the RedELK server. So it's all TLS encrypted. But for the TLS encryption, you need to have the proper DNS names, and there's a few things in there that you need to configure. It's not hard, you just need to do it. You run the installers on the different components, and after the installation, there are some post-installation edits. And you can find them in the etc RedELK, and they're in the cron. And there's also extensive logging by the RedELK on the RedELK server itself. In var log RedELK, you can find all kinds of logs happening in there about the enrichment, about the downloading of the file. So there's a lot of information already there. Now, currently there's a version 1.2.0. It's stable, and our main focus for the version 1 is helping the red team operator with the oversight, help him with his workflow, have them control those multitude of systems, and just having the screen open of RedELK will help you already in operation. Even if you have not configured everything and don't get the alarms, just having the information out there in an easily accessible interface, just looking at the traffic or just clicking through the beacon logs, it will help you. We focus on support for our own implants and on Cobalt Strike and HA Proxy and Apache as redirectors. Now that's version 1, and there's some basic alarms. Version 2 currently in dev, going to be released later on this year. Do not pin me on a very specific date. I've got many things to do, including development of this. We're going to be focusing more on getting intelligent alarms and making those alarms easier to manage for the red team. I do not know how your infrastructure looks like and what you want to look for, so I want to give you a better interface of how you can manage your own alarms that are specific for you. Of course, if there is a Python user agent connecting to your C2 backend, that's still a clear alarm, but there are many other things that you might want to configure yourself. Now, we had a basic first commit of the Porsche C2 framework. We're going to be improving that, and I know that the people from Skype are working on it, and the main developer behind Covenant is looking into how to improve logging, that it actually can be adopted into RedELK. So that's awesome. And Nginx is being, we're working on that as well, and the infrastructure as code, which is very interesting new development, which I like a lot. And like I said at the beginning, we're trying to bring hunting tools into red teaming as well. So we are integrating a Neo4j installation on the RedELK server and a list of Jupyter notebooks that will help you basically doing some sort of threat hunting on the data that you have. So that could be pulling data from beacon operational logs or logs from your C2 implant and connecting that back to the Active Directory Bloodhound information that you pulled from one of the implants and then that you injected into Neo4j. The Jupyter notebooks are able to connect to those both and get the information together. And we have a few of those interesting queries already that are going to be shipped with the next release, which is pretty awesome. Again, it will help your workflow, but it will also make you quicker, make you better in your red teaming work. Now, there's a lot of acknowledgements going on here. I'm not the only developer. I do spend a lot of time on it, but my colleague, Mark Bergman, who goes by the handle Xichix, is the co-developer. He's a Python ninja, and his rule is that if you need to do something like 2 or 3 times by hand, he starts automating it, which was pretty very substantial and necessary for RedELK. Curious Jack, he just made Ansible playbooks, I believe just last week. You can find the code and the blog at TrustedSec. So the fine people at TrustedSec are also experimenting with RedELK. The same goes for the people at MDSec, the UK company. Adam Chester, who goes by the handle XPN. He is experimenting with Docker containers, and Ben Turner, he created the first step of the Porsche C2 support, and there's several people who are already committed pull requests to the stack, for which I'm very much grateful. Thank you. Now, there are several firms already reaching out with support, and they are giving back ideas, and like I said in the beginning, it feels good to be able to give back to the community and together build on a better tool. So I want to have your feedback on how you use RedELK, so how we can better prepare it for the next release. Short summary, again, if there is one thing that you want to remind from this presentation is that the sole purpose of a red team is to make the blue team better. Yes, we can do lead hacks. Yes, we can try to come in and knock them down like a wrecking ball. That's not the goal. Our goal as red is to make blue better. And that means that we need to be able to see that punch coming from the blue team, and RedELK can be seen as a tool that will help you with better insight on that. And for the blue teamers listening in here, there are many aspects, and I listed a few in this presentation, but there are many more where you need to think of your own OPSEC. Reach out to me if you want to have more information about this. The tool is available on GitHub, and the few blogs at our blog. There are many other blogs going on stuff, not only RedELK, but other offensive things. And there's that. That was my ramblings on RedELK and on Blue Team operational security. If there is some more time left, I'll be happy to answer some questions in this stream.
Well, we're kind of over our time, and I think I have another. George, you're me now. You're me now, dude.
That's awesome.
That's funny. So Mark, by the way, you got me at Jupyter Notebooks. When you said Jupyter Notebook support, I was like, yes.
It's awesome. It truly is awesome.
Yes.
The things you can do with that, and especially the mapping between different data sources, it's very much powerful.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, that version 2 looks work with RedELK. If you've never done data analysis, this is amazing. So I really thank Mark for that. Go do pull requests. But as far as Q&A, there was some questions that I wanted you to answer, Mark. We were really way over time, but I thought this was important.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, it's not your fault. We were running late anyway. Not your fault at all, but I really wanted to get, I mean, we're like 7 minutes over. It's not like a big deal. Besides, people are eating lunch, it's fine. So I had some questions for you. So first of all, one of the ones that people asked is they're blue teamer, they want to go red team. 30-second, best way to make the transition from blue to red.
Wow, just do it. It's there is so much information out there to work on the offensive side. There is so much tools out there. Apply for a job somewhere. OCP is a great certificate, but that's morely pen testing. Red teaming trainings are becoming to be there, but just apply for a job somewhere, and it's awesome. And if you've got blue team background, you will be a better red teamer than the majority of red teamers. Yeah,
I agree. I totally agree. Second one that people are asking about, are there any video tutorials for RedELK?
Nope.
Right?
So although the part 3 blog post does have animated GIFs, which is something.
Yeah. Or if you're somebody who wants to help and doesn't know how to program, that might be a great way to help out, is to actually make videos on this, right?
Yes, that would be very much appreciated. Yeah.
And I think for now, I think that was about it.
Yeah, I had one that I was interested. This was actually Steve Thompson that posted it on the hallway for you, Mark. And it states, what number of staff do you devote to monitoring RedELK? Is it just used as needed, or do you have a dedicated resource on, when you do a red team engagement that focuses only on infrastructure? Is it more than one?
That's a very good question. We are a small company, like I said, only 7 people, and not all those of the 7 are working on the same red team engagement at the same time. A majority of times it's 2 or 3 main red teamers and a few people with specific knowledge about, let's say, Active Directory details available upon request. In practice, we see that RedELK is on every red team operator's console. So if you got 2 people working with the, on one screen they have Corporate Strike open, on the other one they have a RedELK interface open. So it goes side by side, and there is no dedicated person working on that. It goes perfectly fine with the normal red teamers workflow.
Yep. And then I think the only other question that I saw is end-to-end, is there a workflow, or is there thought of a workflow in place to map, to go from phase 1 reconnaissance to exploit and map it end-to-end in RedELK? In other words, can you stitch all the events together and formulate like a roadmap, or maybe integrate?
Not entirely, no, but it will give you the key indicators like the list of IOCs, or the list of touched users, or the list of touched systems, including the timestamp on when you hit that, which will help you with the aftercare with the blue team. We have not yet included the mailboxes and the mails sent out in the beginning of the recon phase. That's not just yet. So we first focused on the core part, and we are slowly building on the ends of the chains.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, these are the kind of things that if this is an open source project and you're really interested in this, contribute. If there's something you want to add to it, any little bit would help. So
yes, awesome. Okay.